The international community is calling on for an end to the clashes between Thailand and Cambodia. But here's the latest development. Thailand's prime minister has moved to dissolve parliament, triggering elections earlier than previously planned. Thailand's king has approved a decree to dissolve parliament. How will this affect the violence between Thailand and Cambodia? Good morning, this is Gerg Cahiles, and you are watching At the Forefront. Well, to give us his analysis on the current clashes between Thailand and Cambodia, we'll be speaking with political science professor Aries Arugay. He joins us via Zoom. Good morning, Professor Arugay.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning, sir. Well, let's start off by giving us an idea for our viewers' benefit po, no? Thailand and Cambodia have been contesting territorial sovereignty along their 800-kilometer land border for centuries already, sir. Why is it happening?
Right. This is a legacy of colonialism. When Cambodia was still a colony of France, and when it gave up its colonial tutelage, it provided Cambodia with a map of its territory. And this was used by Cambodia to demarcate its own borders. And while this was accepted by Cambodia, Thailand not necessarily agreed with this. And, one of the more contentious parts is a temple, a Buddhist temple, on this supposed border. And this 1907 map became the basis of a case in the World Court, in the International Court of Justice. And therefore, the ICJ, in fact, awarded the temple to Cambodia in a 1962 ruling. This was reinforced by additional ruling, but court did not necessarily agree.
Professor Arugay? Sir,
yes, go ahead.
We will just be fixing our line with you because we're experiencing some intermittent signal right now. But at the forefront, we'll be right back after a few messages from our sponsors. Welcome back at the forefront. We're back with Professor Aries Arugay. Now, sir, you were talking about the French colonization way back and then post World War scenario, and here's what's happening right now, the clashes between Cambodia and Thailand. Can you please continue what you're talking about earlier?
Right. As far as international law is concerned, the ICJ has awarded the temple and the surrounding territory to Cambodia, but this was not necessarily accepted by Thailand. And in fact, the latest development is that the, what do you call this? The temple was awarded and it's being registered as a UNESCO heritage site, which caused a lot of protests by the Thai government. And therefore, this conflict started with skirmishes from the military of both countries that are guarding the border. And we know that a few months ago during the ASEAN summit, there was a accord signed by leaders of both countries. And unfortunately, this accord and that mandated the ceasefire was broken a few days ago.
No, but can the UN step in to settle the dispute?
Well, I think as far as the UN is concerned, both parties have already consented to ICJ jurisdiction. The UN can enter through the UN Security Council because it has the power to maintain peace and stability, and it can issue resolutions The problem is we have not seen the UN Security Council acting on a lot of conflicts around the world. As you may notice, there's been no UN Security Council resolution on Ukraine, on Gaza,
Gaza, yeah.
on Lebanon, and etc. So at the moment, the UN is not being able to address interstate conflicts that we have seen around the world.
Okay, since you're talking about the failure of the United Nations, or at least the Security Council, to act on these conflicts, no? You were talking about the accord that was signed last October. Trump claimed he ended the border conflict after both sides signed that ceasefire agreement. And some of analysts would describe the Trump-brokered truce as a coercive diplomacy. So from your perspective, Professor, why do you think that this political miscalculations or this accord became vulnerable for a short-term, siguro, or a possible collapse?
Right. While the accord stopped the hostilities immediately, it did not really address the main problems affecting the conflict. So what Trump did is just threaten countries with tariffs. But let's remember, the Thai and the Cambodian economies are not entirely tied with the U.S. economy. In fact, their main trade partners is China, not the United States. So therefore, the effectivity of Trump's threats must be reconciled with the political and not just economic, the political incentives of the governments of both countries. What is very interesting is that the analysis so far is telling us that this conflict has domestic political dimensions. It has something to do with the current weak government of Prime Minister Anutin in Thailand, who just dissolved parliament today, and they'll be having new elections earlier than scheduled. Because let's remember, this government is merely a caretaker because the original government of former Prime Minister Paytorn, Thaksin's daughter, she was deposed from office. And in fact, this conflict had something to do with
the Cambodian and Thailand border conflict as well,
exactly.
right?
Yes. The leaked phone call between Hun Sen and the former Thai Prime Minister. So it's important to understand that on the side of Thailand, it might be beneficial for its government and political elites to somehow make this conflict not necessarily worse, but to have a more harder stance on the conflict.
But let's talk first, Professor, on China, because you mentioned it earlier, no? Sabi mo, the economy of both Thailand and Cambodia, they're tied to China more than the United States. Now, the spokesperson for China's foreign ministry said that Beijing will continue to play a constructive role in helping ease tensions between the two countries. Now, do you think China can do a better job than Trump in ending the clashes? And are we seeing actual mediation from China's end?
Right. The U.S. is, of course, a very important actor for both countries. Let's remember that Thailand is also an ally of the United States, though not necessarily a mutual defense treaty ally like us. On the other hand, Cambodia wants to balance its relationship between China and the U.S. because for now it's very skewed towards China. In fact, the accord that was signed in Kuala Lumpur, the U.S. wanted it to be a deal forged by Trump because, as you know, Trump wants to solve conflicts around the world. He said that he already solved 8 world conflicts. And this is just a very small conflict compared to the other conflicts that he has resolved. But in fact, what is important is that China's very big role, not only in the economics, but in the politics in both countries, could in fact trump uh, the leverage offered by the United States.
But will there be risks po, Professor, if China will be more active in terms of participating in, helping each countries resolve this issue? And siguro, iniisip ko rin if potentially ba, can it undermine the ASEAN centrality as of the moment?
Definitely.
Uh-huh.
China is not known to be a mediator in international conflicts. And why is this? Because, in a way, it could be construed as interference in the domestic affairs of states. So think about it. If China starts intruding into the domestic affairs of states like Thailand and Cambodia, then other countries can say that, well, if China can do that, then therefore other countries can also intervene in China's own domestic affairs. So China is quite sensitive
Okay.
about intervening into the internal affairs of its own countries because it's living in a glass house. It has a lot of domestic issues too, and it often accuses the United States of intervening in its own domestic affairs. But you're correct. If there's a body that should have a greater role, it should be the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Unfortunately, the way that ASEAN decides is that there must be unanimous approval from all members. That includes Thailand and Cambodia. So if ASEAN will do something, it has not only to be agreed by all members, but it has to be agreeable to Thailand and Cambodia. If there is no unanimous approval, then ASEAN cannot act.
We will talk more about the ASEAN's role in this conflict resolution and the Philippines' role as well as the incoming chairperson of ASEAN when at the forefront. We'll be right back after a few reminders. Welcome back to At the Forefront. We continue our conversation with UP Political Science Professor Aries Arugay. Professor, you were talking earlier about the limited capacity or the limits of the conflict management tool of ASEAN in general. Ano po? And of course, the Philippines will be the chair of ASEAN next year. So what do you think? Can the Philippines start this confidence building between Thailand and Cambodia and continue discussions and at the very least ay magkaroon ng ceasefire?
Yes, in fact, during the ASEAN summit in Malaysia, the ASEAN Secretary General, who is Cambodian, expressed confidence that President Marcos and the Philippines can take a more proactive and constructive role as mediator. And if you notice, when President Marcos opened the ceremony of the Philippines chairmanship, he also focused on peace and security. So I think the Philippine government at the moment has a quite cognizant role that it faces a very challenging region, and including this is not only, for example, the Myanmar issue, but the Thai-Cambodian conflict as well. Though it would be very difficult, but I think one thing that that is on the plus side of us handling this as chair of ASEAN is that we don't have a direct stake in the conflict because this conflict is in mainland Southeast Asia. And I think, therefore, we won't be seen as partisan. Unlike, for example, if the chair would be either one of the two countries or a neighboring country, for example. So I think there's something that could be done by the Philippines. The Philippines, because it has also good relationships with other external actors like the United States. And let's remember that the Philippines is also vying for a non-permanent seat in the UN Security Council.
Exactly.
So all of this could be tied into the peace maker, the bridge builder role that, in fact, President Marcos has already mentioned in some of his speeches abroad on Philippine foreign policy.
So, are you saying that this is an opportunity for the Philippines to show, and President Marcos to show, that he has the capacity to somehow help resolving this case?
Well, yes, at the foreign policy front, and hopefully the Philippine government won't be too distracted with
Yes.
our own domestic issues, that it can project a very constructive role in the international community. But I also have confidence in the quality of our diplomats. So while the president is on top of this, much of the work will be done by our, I think, very competent and well-qualified diplomats that could handle this. But the Philippines must come across as really a consensus builder, and not a country that will further cause stress or divides within ASEAN. And therefore, it must look at its chairmanship role not as an opportunity to necessarily advance its immediate political agenda. I've heard analysis that, oh, we must put the South China Sea issue at the forefront. That's not how it works. When you're chair of ASEAN, you have to build consensus. And if
Yes.
there's no consensus on the South China Sea issue among members, then you don't push it because you'll be seen as opportunistic. On the other hand, if pursuing peaceful, at least de-escalation, because I think this Thai-Cambodian conflict is very complicated, but just if the Philippines is able to de-escalate, be able to invite both countries back to the negotiating table, to somehow make ASEAN as a viable mechanism for peacekeeping, to have some sort of demarcated no man's zone or a demilitarized zone. I think those are concrete achievements because settling this, it's a land or territorial dispute. You can't really settle this because both governments do not want to lose territory,
Exactly.
because they'll be seen as unnationalistic and even may commit unconstitutional acts by their own people.
But it's like the same as what's happening in Korea. There's the militarized zone wherein both countries will be keeping peace in that area. No po?
Yes, that is correct. And what you need is a credible mission, a credible set of actors that could both be believed by the Thai and the Cambodian side. ASEAN has a role to play on this, and also perhaps other external parties. So if you have like an international mission composed of ASEAN and other external countries that will send observers, that will send peacekeepers, I think that will be a way to de-escalate conflict, because already around, I think, 9 to 12 people have died on both sides. More than 500,000 people are being displaced. So if this conflict goes on, what do you do with that 500 to 600,000 Thai and Cambodian citizens? Will they live in evacuation centers for months, for weeks? So this is something that is also in the interest of both the Thai and the Cambodian governments to de-escalate, to ensure that there'll be some form of truce or ceasefire that this time will work, and not something that was just, quickly done by the US but immediately fizzled out after a few weeks.
Now, since you're talking about the internal political and economic pressures from both governments right now, do you think this ongoing conflict between the two countries is just their way of somehow divert the attention of their people, of the public, of the Cambodians, of the Thais, from the economic and political situation in both countries?
Right. So there's many analysis that calls this a diversionary conflict, meaning it is because if, and this has played out in social media. You see both sides trying to blame one another. You have influencers trying to explain this conflict that is highly skewed on either the Thai, positively on the Thai side or on the Cambodian side, and in a way, this conflict is somehow promoting a very ultra nationalistic narrative, and this stokes the flames of the conflict. Therefore, it is very difficult for governments to even say that, okay, let's stop the casualty, like, let's prevent casualties, let's stop the airstrikes, because thus far, both governments have said that our militaries, this is a military matter, and the militaries, of course, will do what it can to defend the security interests of both countries. So, in a way, this with the upcoming elections also in Thailand, the political parties would always say that we will defend Thai interests, Thai sovereignty, and that may mean more than less military action. And therefore, we must understand that this conflict has domestic roots. And unless those domestic roots are addressed, the conflict could be used as a way to improve the political standing of certain politicians and political parties on both countries.
I wish we have more time to discuss this deeper, Professor, but we thank you for your time. UP Professor Aries Arugay.
Thank you very much.
Clashes between Ukraine and Russia continue, while the violence in Gaza between Israeli forces and Hamas has yet to end. The latest conflict, this time between Thailand and Cambodia, hits closer to home. The US, China, and ASEAN nations have expressed willingness to help end the conflict, but in the end, it is the resolve of both countries involved that will determine their fate. Hopefully, a lasting peace will be achieved before things get worse. Be informed, be insightful of the news. I'm Gerg Cahiles. Always stay at the forefront.